I wasn't searching for love when I met Michael Harris. Fresh out of college, I was navigating my first real job at a mid-sized company in downtown Cleveland, still figuring out the corporate world. Michael, a bit older, was an administrator there, calm, reliable, the guy younger employees turned to when things got overwhelming. Our bond started with his small acts of kindness. He guided me through systems, taught me the ropes, and explained things patiently, never making me feel small. What began as mentorship turned into coffee break chats, then after-work walks, and soon something deeper. I learned how well we clicked over time. Michael wasn't loud or showy. He was steady, thoughtful, and had a quiet humor that caught me off guard. We both loved music with a story, aimless road trips, and cooking together after long days. Within a year, we shared a cozy Cleveland apartment. It wasn't big, but it felt like home with our little traditions: takeout Fridays, pancake Sundays, and monthly weekend trips to small Ohio towns or even Pennsylvania. Michael didn't split chores into mine or his. If he got home first, he'd whip up dinner, sometimes trying new recipes. If I had time, I'd fold laundry or plan our next adventure. Our life flowed smoothly, built on mutual respect. Friends always said we seemed so natural together, like we just fit. One thing always stood out, though. Michael never drank. Parties, when beers or wine came out, he'd smile and pass. "I'm an athlete," he'd say. "Been boxing since I was 7. Alcohol doesn't sit well with me, and I can't stand the smell." It was straightforward, no big deal, and people moved on. I admired his discipline. Showed the self-control and commitment I valued so much. As our relationship grew, marriage talk felt natural. My parents, Patricia and George Dawson, knew I was serious about Michael. They were eager to meet him. So one Saturday, I brought him to their East Side Cleveland home. Mom, warm and welcoming, laid out a feast: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, her famous apple pie. Dad, quieter but kind, poured drinks and cleared a spot at the table. They treated Michael like family from the moment he stepped inside. Dinner was easy and warm. Dad asked Michael about his job, hobbies, and views on life. Michael answered smoothly, sharing his love for hiking, early runs by Lake Erie, and quiet nights over loud parties. Mom noticed how he looked at me, gentle yet protective. But as we ate pie, she asked, "So, Michael, what's your family like?" "Michelle hasn't said much. We'd love to hear more." Michael paused just for a second. I caught it, though, a flicker in his smile before it returned, calm and practiced. "They're in another part of Ohio," he said lightly. "Not much to say. We don't see each other much." He quickly asked Dad about his logistics job, dodging the spotlight. Mom glanced at Dad, then at me. It wasn't distrust, just curiosity. Why hadn't I met his family? Why did he never mention them? I felt it, too. For the first time since falling for him, I realized there was a part of Michael I didn't know. It wasn't just the lack of details, it was how he sidestepped the question like he was guarding a locked door. The night ended warmly. Michael thanked Mom for the meal, shook Dad's hand, and helped me with my coat. But driving home, a quiet tension settled in. I stared out the window, wondering about the parts of his life he kept hidden. He'd given me his time, kindness, and love. Yet behind his steady smile was a silence, one that stretched far beyond Cleveland to wherever he came from. A silence I couldn't shake, no matter how hard I tried. Winter was fading when wedding talk took over my parents' house. Mom dreamed of me in a white dress, walking down a flower-lined aisle, guests standing in awe. Dad, ever practical, acted like he didn't care about the details. But I caught his smile when Mom mentioned the first dance or champagne toasts. To them, a wedding wasn't just a ceremony. It was about family, tradition, and the life they'd built for me. Michael had a different view. One night in our small apartment, over takeout and the radiator's hum, he spoke up. What if we kept the wedding small? Just us, a few friends, maybe a courthouse ceremony and a simple dinner. No limos or big venues." I tilted my head, caught off guard. I'd pictured something modest but joyful: family, music, photos to cherish. Small, sure, I said, but no reception at all? He shrugged, keeping it light. Why spend money feeding people we barely know? We could save for a honeymoon or a house, something that matters for us. It was practical, even sweet in its way. But when I told my parents, Mom gasped. No reception? No way, Michelle. You deserve a real wedding. We've waited for this since you were born. We'll pay for it if we have to. You're our daughter, and you should have the day you've dreamed of. Dad nodded quietly. It's not just about you two, sweetheart. It's about family and honoring your commitment. I stood caught between my parents and Michael, my heart torn. I wanted to honor Michael's wish for a simple wedding, but Mom's sparkling eyes and Dad's firm voice pulled at me. They dreamed of giving me a once-in-a-lifetime day. The next weekend, while folding laundry with Michael, I tried again. My parents really want a bigger wedding, I said softly. They'll even pay. It means a lot to them. Michael's hands froze mid-fold on a t-shirt. He set it down and sighed. Michelle, my parents won't be there. His words hit like a weight. I blinked, stunned. What? You haven't even told them the date. I don't need to, he said, looking away. They won't come. That's just how it is. But Michael, I pushed, it's our wedding. Don't you want your family there? Your mom, your dad, anyone? His jaw tightened and he shook his head. It's not possible. They're busy. Let's leave it at that. His answer felt flimsy, like a gust of air. Frustration burned in my chest, not because his parents couldn't come, but because he shut me out as if the topic was off limits. I forced a smile, trying to let it go. But that night, lying awake next to him, I couldn't. Michael had earned my trust in every way, but his silence ate at me. Weddings are about uniting families, not just two people signing papers. Why was he hiding his family from me? I told myself not to push. He'd open up when ready. But days passed and the questions lingered. Why hadn't I met his family? Why did he never call them or say their names? What was behind that calm face? First, the doubts were quiet, easy to ignore in our daily routine. But they kept creeping back like water through a cracked wall. For the first time since we moved in together, I wondered if I really knew the man I was going to marry. That night, when Michael said his parents wouldn't come, a seed of curiosity took root. He offered no reason, just a wall of silence. The more he dodged, the more I needed answers. A week later, he mentioned a short business trip. Nothing unusual, just work in another Ohio town. He asked if I wanted to join, but I declined, saying I had reports to finish and no interest in wandering alone while he was in meetings. He kissed my forehead, grabbed his overnight bag, and left before dawn. As the taxi pulled away, my heart pounded. I'd made up my mind. That evening, while tidying our apartment, I found what I needed in Michael's car glove compartment, a folded envelope addressed to Carol Harris in Youngstown. I stared at the name, remembering Michael mentioning his mother's name once, like a slip. Carol. This had to be her. I held the envelope, my hands trembling. It felt like betraying him, crossing a line I swore I wouldn't. But there it was, the address he'd kept secret, the key to his hidden family. I tucked it into my purse. The next morning, I packed a bag and told my parents I was running errands outside Cleveland. Then I set my GPS for Youngstown. The highway stretched flat, the winter sun pale against my windshield. As I drove, Cleveland's busy suburbs faded into the gray, quiet edges of Ohio's Rust Belt. Empty warehouses with shattered windows lined the road. Abandoned factories, once alive with steel production, stood silent, their smokestacks jagged against the sky. Nearing Youngstown, the decay was stark. Houses sagged, porches collapsed, windows boarded up. Some streets felt lifeless, like ghosts of a forgotten time. A liquor store's neon sign buzzed faintly in daylight. Across from it, a diner slumped under a worn awning. I gripped the wheel tighter. I'd grown up in a tidy, middle-class neighborhood with mowed lawns and friendly waves. Here, silence hung thick, broken only by a stray dog's bark or music from a passing car. My GPS led me to a narrow street, asphalt cracked and pocked with potholes. Overgrown yards and splintered fences surrounded me. A rusted pickup sat tireless on blocks. Faded laundry hung stiffly on a line. My heart raced as I slowed down. This was Michael's hidden world, the one he'd kept from me. His refusal to drink, his silence about family, his insistence his parents wouldn't come, it started to make sense in this broken place. I parked near a corner store with a sagging roof and a hand-painted sign. For a moment, I just sat, staring at the address on the paper, unsure if I could face knocking on that door. Guilt twisted in my gut. I loved Michael. I trusted him. But I couldn't build a marriage on secrets. Taking a deep breath, I started the car and drove deeper into the neighborhood. Each turn felt like stepping further into a forgotten Ohio. Houses leaned like tired old men. A rusted tricycle lay in a weed-choked yard. A dog's mournful howl echoed in the distance. Then I saw it, a crooked number on a cracked mailbox, Harris. My chest tightened. I pulled to the curb and cut the engine. I sat still, staring at the sagging house, its porch littered with beer cans, curtains yellowed and stiff. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and opened the car door. Cold air stung my cheeks, my boots loud on the gravel. Whatever Michael was hiding here, I was about to face it alone. I stood in front of the crumbling house, the mailbox number barely visible under rust and chipped paint. My breath clouded in the cold as I climbed the creaky porch steps. A sour stench hit me, stale beer, cheap liquor, something sharp clinging to the wood. I almost turned back. I knocked, but heard only the faint buzz of a TV inside. I knocked again, louder. A gruff voice snapped from within. The door creaked open, revealing a woman who looked worn beyond her years. Carol Harris's hair was tangled, her face splotchy, eyes red-rimmed. A stained bathrobe hung loosely on her thin frame. She gripped the door frame, squinting at me. "What?" "If you're from the electric company, I don't have the money." "Shut it off." "No TV, no fridge, I don't care." Her words slurred, a vodka bottle dangling from her hand. My heart raced. "I'm looking for Carol Harris," I said cautiously. "That's me," she shot back, eyeing me up and down. "Who are you?" "What do you want?" Before I could answer, a young voice cut through from inside. "Mom, leave her alone. She's not from the power company." A girl stepped into the hallway, thin, maybe 12, with dark blonde hair and a messy ponytail. Her green eyes were sharp, fierce, too old for her age. "Go to your room, Lily," Carol barked, her voice bitter. But Lily stood firm, glaring back. "You'll just try to scam her like everyone else." "Shut up." Carol lurched forward, unsteady, the bottle sloshing. Lily stepped back, her voice rising. "You sold my jacket for booze. The boots Michael got me? Gone. You'd sell my phone if I let you. That's why he never comes back." Michael's name hit me like a punch, heavy with pain and anger. Carol's face twisted with shame and fury. "Don't talk about your brother like you know him. You don't know what he's done for us, what I've had to do." Lily's fists clenched, her chest heaving. "All you do is drink. Daniel's dead, and Michael hates this place because of you. When I'm older, I'm gone too." Her voice broke, but her eyes held steady. I stood frozen, my mind reeling. I came for answers, and here they were, raw, ugly, spilling out. Carol turned to me, her face hard. "You don't belong here. Get off my property." My pulse pounded. Part of me wanted to run to my car and forget this place. But Lily's fierce green eyes locked on mine, silently begging, saying nothing. "I'm sorry," I whispered, stepping back. "I didn't mean to intrude." Carol slammed the door, the sound echoing through the frail walls. Silence pressed in, heavy and thick. I lingered, my breath fogging, my heart hammering. Through a cracked window's thin curtain, I saw Lily retreat down the hall, her small frame tense against the house's chaos. I knew one thing for sure. Michael's buried past, the silence he kept, was real and darker than I'd ever imagined. The door had just slammed when Lily bolted out the side of the house, her sneakers pounding the broken sidewalk. I froze for a second, then instinct kicked in. I couldn't leave her alone after that. "Lily, wait," called, my voice shaky in the cold air. She didn't stop, darting between two sagging houses, her small figure moving fast. I chased after her, my boots crunching on gravel and glass, my heart racing, not just from running but from the fear I'd lose the truth Michael had hidden. After a few blocks, the street opened to a clearing. A rundown convenience store sat on the corner, its sign faded, windows dirty. Beyond it, a dirt path led to a lake glinting faintly in the weak sun. I saw Lily heading there, shoulders rigid, hands in her pockets. I ducked into the store first, the door's bell jingling weakly. Inside it smelled stale, shelves of canned soup, dusty cereal, a cooler humming with soda and cheap beer. I grabbed cookies, beef jerky, and some bright lollipops from a jar. The tired cashier rang me up without a word. Outside, Lily stood at the path's edge, arms crossed, her green eyes narrowed. "Why are you following me?" I held up the bag. "I thought you might be hungry." That's all. She didn't budge at first. Then, with a tired shrug, she turned toward the lake. "Fine, but I'm not going home yet." I followed her down the path to a small lake, circled by bare trees and scattered rocks. The water was still, mirroring the pale sky. Lily sat on a fallen log, knees pulled to her chest. I sat nearby, opening the bag and placing the snacks between us. "Here," I said gently. "Take what you want." She glanced at the cookies, grabbed one, and chewed slowly, her face blank. Then she took a lollipop, twirling it in her fingers. The lake's quiet ripples broke the silence between us. I didn't push Lily to talk. I knew she needed space. Finally, her voice softened, losing the edge she'd shown her mom. "You're not from here." "I can tell." "Why'd you come?" My chest tightened with the truth. "I know your brother, Michael," I said. Her head snapped up, eyes wide, then sharp with doubt. "You're lying." "I'm not," I said quickly. "I'm engaged to him. We're getting married soon." Lily stared, then her shoulders sagged. "So that's why he came back," she muttered, gazing at the water, her tone hardening. "He doesn't talk about us, does he?" I shook my head. "No, he doesn't. That's why I'm here." I needed to know. Lily let out a bitter laugh, empty of joy. "Why would he?" "This place, my mom, it's nothing he'd want you to see." I stayed quiet, letting her words flow. She fiddled with the lollipop wrapper, then spoke, her voice low but firm. "Michael used to come back a lot when Daniel was alive. He tried to help, to fix things, but Mom was always drinking, selling our stuff for booze, jackets, shoes, even my school supplies. He stopped bringing things because she'd trade them away. He hated it here, hated her, but he loved us, especially Daniel." Her voice caught, and she paused. My heart ached. I could feel the weight in her words, a truth I wasn't sure I could handle. "Daniel was different," she whispered. "He was strong, always protecting me, even from Mom's boyfriends. But one night, one of them came at her with a knife. Daniel stepped in." She stopped, staring at the lake like it could erase the memory. "He didn't make it." My chest hurt so much I could barely breathe. I wanted to touch her shoulder, to comfort her, but I didn't. Lily wasn't looking for pity, she was telling her story because no one else would. "That's why Michael stays away," she said, her green eyes meeting mine. "He blames himself. Thinks he could have saved Daniel if he'd been here. But he couldn't save him. Couldn't save any of us." A cold wind swept across the lake, carrying a faint smoky smell. I swallowed hard. Suddenly, I understood Michael's refusal to drink, his silence about his family, his walls when I asked questions. It wasn't pride or secrets, it was grief. Sitting with Lily, I knew this was only the start of the truth I'd uncovered. The lake's chill made me pull my coat tighter, but I stayed put. Lily hunched forward on the log, elbows on her knees, staring at the water like it held her story captive. There were 4 of us, she began, her voice flat, too bitter for a 12-year-old. Sarah, my oldest sister, got married before finishing high school. She's got kids now, a few, maybe more. We barely see her. Then Michael, then Daniel, just a year younger than him and me. My breath caught. I could see Michael as the steady big brother, but Daniel's name lingered like a ghost. Sarah's a mess, Lily continued. Married a guy who drinks almost as much as Mom. They fight, make up, fight again. Cops show up sometimes. Social services almost took her kids once. She got clean just long enough to keep them, but nothing really changes. She tugged a loose thread from her jeans and snapped it off. Michael left as soon as he could, she said. Went to college in Cleveland, got a job, built a life. He'd come back weekends, bring food, clothes. He worried about me and Daniel, yelled at Mom to stop drinking, but it never lasted. She'd start again the second he left. My stomach twisted, but I kept my face steady. Daniel was different, Lily whispered. He stayed, tried to hold things together when Michael was gone. He protected me, even from Mom. He thought he could save her. Her voice broke. I waited, giving her space. One winter, a couple years back, Mom was with this guy, Tony, she said finally. Mean, always drunk, always angry. One night, he came at her with a knife. I don't even know why, something stupid. Daniel got between them, tried to stop him. He got stabbed before anyone could react. Her words hit me like a punch. I covered my mouth, horrified. The ambulance came too late, she murmured. Daniel bled out on the floor. Michael wasn't here. Snowstorm kept him in Cleveland. He said later if he'd been here, Daniel would have lived. He screamed at Mom at the funeral, said she killed him. Maybe she did. If she hadn't let Tony in, Daniel would still be here. Tears stung my eyes, my throat tight. I could picture it, the cramped room, the yells, the knife, Daniel falling as Lily watched. Michael never came back after that, she said. Not really. He showed up once to pack and make sure I was okay. Gave me a bank card, put money in when he could, but he wouldn't step inside. Told Mom he'd call the cops if she brought another man around. I believed him, everyone did. Nobody messes with Michael now. But he still won't come back. Lily looked at me, her wet eyes fierce, daring me to challenge her. That's why he doesn't drink, doesn't talk about us. He hates alcohol, what it does, hates her. And he blames himself for Daniel every day. My chest ached. I wanted to hug her, tell her it wasn't Michael's fault, that no one could have stopped that night. But now I understood the walls he'd built. Every drink, every mention of that house carried the memory of blood and a brother he couldn't save. We sat in silence for a long time, the lake glowing faintly as the sun dipped low, painting everything gray. I stared at the water, trying to process Lily's words. I thought of Michael, the man who chuckled when I burned pancakes, who folded laundry without a fuss, who kissed my hand like it was second nature. Now I saw the grief he carried, heavy and hidden. It wasn't shame that kept him quiet. It was pain too raw to speak. I closed my eyes, a tear sliding down my cheek. I finally understood why Michael never touched a drink, why he tensed when others drank freely. To him, alcohol wasn't just a drink. It was the poison that tore his family apart, that took his brother, that kept him distant from Lily despite his love for her. Truth hit me hard, but it also brought clarity. The silence that once bothered me now broke my heart. Driving back to Cleveland felt endless, though the miles were the same. The highway stretched on, but my mind was heavier, weighed down by Lily's story. Her voice echoed, flat yet full of unhealed wounds. 4 siblings, a mother lost to addiction, a brother gone too soon, and Michael trapped in guilt he didn't deserve. I gripped the steering wheel tightly. I'd wondered for years why he avoided family talk, why he never drank. Now I knew. Every beer or whiskey wasn't just a reminder, it pulled him back to the night Daniel died. His refusal wasn't just discipline, it was how he survived. Cleveland's skyline appeared, its familiar shapes rising against the fading sky. My chest ached with mixed feelings. I loved Michael more, knowing the strength it took to rebuild his life. But I couldn't forget Lily, her fierce green eyes and fragile bravery, still stuck in that broken house, fighting chaos that had already taken so much. At my parents' house that evening, Mom saw the shadow in my eyes right away. Dinner waited, roast chicken, potatoes, the warm smells of home. But I couldn't taste it. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Mom asked, touching my hand. I hesitated, then shook my head. "Nothing you can fix, Mom. I've been thinking about the wedding." Dad looked up, curious. "Rethinking the big party already?" he said lightly, though surprised. I took a deep breath. "Yes. I don't want a big wedding, no banquet halls, no limos, no flowers. I want it simple, just Michael, me, and the people who matter. That includes Lily." The room went quiet. Mom's brow furrowed. "Lily? Michael's little sister," I said, my voice shaky. "I met her. She deserves better than her life now. She needs to see her brother start anew, to know she's not forgotten." Dad leaned back, arms crossed. "Michelle, we don't know her." "You sure?" "I've never been sure," I said firmly, looking at them both. "You've given me everything, safety, love, stability. Lily has none of that. If Michael and I are starting a life together, I want her in it, not left behind." Mom's face softened as she glanced at Dad. "You care about her," she said. I nodded, tears rising. "She's just a kid, Mom, forced to grow up too fast. Michael's been supporting her from afar, and I can't marry him pretending she doesn't exist. Our wedding should be about love and family. Lily is his family." Silence settled briefly. Then Mom squeezed my hand across the table. "If this is what you want, we're with you." Dad sighed, shaking his head, but his eyes held no anger, just a hint of pride. "Fine, no big wedding. If including this girl makes you happy, we'll make it work." Relief flooded me. For the first time since Youngstown, I felt a spark of hope. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, Michael's pain wouldn't fade quickly, and Lily's world couldn't be fixed with one act. But I knew love wasn't just about joy. It was about carrying burdens together, standing by those who needed you most. That night in my old bedroom, I lay awake, picturing a wedding with no chandeliers or endless guests, just a small circle of those who mattered. I saw Michael beside me, stronger than ever, and Lily, shy but there, watching her brother start a life free from their past shadows. For the first time, I felt peace, not because my questions were gone, but because I had the answers. As spring crept closer, wedding talk filled the air, but I couldn't keep what I'd learned bottled up. Every time I saw Michael, his steady hands brewing coffee, his calm voice planning our future, I noticed the shadows in his eyes. Lily's words weighed on me, too heavy to hold alone. One night at our kitchen table, I clasped my hands and took a breath. "Michael," I said softly, "I need to tell you something." He looked up, distracted, then tense when he heard my tone. "What is it?" "I went to Youngstown," I said. My words dropped like stones between us. Michael went silent, his face pale, mouth open in shock. "You what?" His chair scraped as he pushed back. "Michelle, why would you? How could you?" "I met Lily," I said. Her name stopped him cold. His hand shook against the table. "You shouldn't have gone," he whispered, voice sharp with panic. "You don't know that place, what she's been through, what I've kept you from." I reached out, my fingers grazing his arm. "Michael, listen. I know now. I saw the house, saw Carol, talked to Lily. She's just a kid, Michael. She needs you. She needs to know you haven't forgotten her." He pulled back like my touch burned. His breath came fast, eyes wild. "You don't get it. I kept you away for a reason. That place is poison. It ruins everything. I swore I'd never pull you into it." I kept my voice steady, calm against his storm. I understand more than you think. Lily told me about Daniel. He flinched like I'd hit him. His jaw clenched and he stared at me, silent. Then he sank into his chair, face in his hands, shoulders shaking with memories he'd buried. I should have been there, he said, voice raw. If I hadn't stayed in Cleveland, if I'd fought through the storm, Daniel would be alive. He wouldn't have faced it alone. I failed him, Michelle. I failed my brother. Tears blurred my eyes, but I kept my voice firm. It wasn't your fault. No one could have stopped that night. You were just a kid, Michael. You've carried this guilt too long, it's not yours. He shook his head hard. You don't know what it's like, seeing that scene in my mind, blood, screams, my mom too drunk to notice until it was too late. I swore I'd never go back, that I'd cut it off to survive. I leaned closer, my hand over his clenched fists. Surviving isn't enough. Lily's still there. She looks up to you, loves you. She's part of our life now. When we marry, I want her there, not out of pity, but because she's your family. Our family. His red-rimmed eyes met mine. You mean that? I do, I whispered. We can't fix the past, but we can shape the future. For her, for us, for Daniel's memory. Wouldn't he want that? Michael's body shook, like my words cracked his walls. He nodded, voice faint. Yes, he would. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. For the first time, Michael let me see his pain, and I held it with him. Our wedding became more than a celebration. It was about redemption, building a family not bound by past pain, but by standing together now. On a bright spring morning, Michael and I stood in the Mahoning County Courthouse. No grand aisles or flowers, just sunlight pouring through tall windows, glinting off polished floors, and the soft hum of a clerk's paperwork. I wore a simple cream dress, knee-length and elegant. Michael, in a navy suit, stood tall, though his hands trembled. When the judge told us to join hands, I felt his grip, strong with the resolve that carried him through so much. The ceremony was short, quiet vows, signatures on paper, and we were married. Mom clapped, dabbing her eyes. Dad cleared his throat, hiding his feelings. Michael's work friends gave warm congratulations. But the moment that hit hardest was when Lily stepped forward in a floral dress and sandals I'd bought her. She looked small, fragile, but her eyes glowed with pride. You look beautiful, she whispered to me, then hugged Michael tightly. He held her close, face in her hair, believing for the first time that family didn't have to mean pain. We walked to a nearby diner, nothing fancy, vinyl booths, chrome stools, bacon and coffee scents in the air, but it felt perfect. We filled a corner table with laughter, pancakes, omelets, and burgers. My best friend snapped phone photos, capturing real moments. Michael and Lily grinning over cake, Mom showing Lily how to stir cream into coffee, Dad smiling softly as I glowed with joy. The waitress, catching on to our celebration, brought a slice of pie with congratulations and chocolate syrup, refusing payment. We cheered as Michael and I shared a bite. It wasn't champagne, but it was sweeter than anything I'd dreamed. As we finished, Michael stood, voice catching. This isn't the wedding people expect, but it's more than I ever hoped for. I thought I didn't deserve peace, love, or a family that believes in me. Today proves me wrong. Having Lily here, he paused, taking her hand, means everything. Lily squeezed back, chin trembling but head high. I'm glad you didn't forget me, she whispered, just for us. Later, as we gathered coats, Michael pulled me aside, holding an envelope with documents. I talked to a lawyer, he said, voice steady. I want to be Lily's guardian. CPS will check us out and there'll be hearings, but I can't leave her in that house anymore. Tears filled my eyes. I touched his cheek, smiling through the warmth in my chest. We'll do it together. She's our family now. The afternoon sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm, golden glow over the quiet street outside the courthouse. Bathed everything in a soft, ethereal light, as if the world itself was celebrating our new beginning. Michael, Lily, and I walked side by side, our footsteps syncing in a rhythm that felt both new and comforting. Lily, sandwiched between us, clutched our hands tightly, her small fingers gripping mine and Michael's as though she were afraid that if she let go, this moment, this fragile sense of security, might slip away like a dream. Her palm was warm and slightly sweaty, a reminder of the nervousness she must have been feeling all day. I glanced down at her, her floral dress fluttering slightly in the gentle breeze, and my heart swelled with a mix of protectiveness and joy. She looked up at me with those piercing green eyes, a shy smile breaking through her usual guarded expression. It was a small victory, that smile, one that spoke volumes about the trust we were slowly building. For years, Michael had associated the word family with nothing but guilt and loss. I could see it in the way he used to tense up whenever the topic arose, his shoulders hunching as if carrying an invisible burden. But now, as we strolled down that sunlit street, I caught a flicker of something different in his eyes: hope. It was subtle, like the first rays of dawn piercing through a long night, but it was there. With me on one side, steady and supportive, and Lily on the other, her presence a living reminder of redemption, Michael seemed to stand a little taller. His hand in mine felt firm, no longer trembling as it had during the ceremony. We didn't speak much during that walk. Words weren't necessary. The simple act of being together, of moving forward as a unit, said everything. Passers-by smiled at us, perhaps mistaking us for just another happy family out for a stroll, unaware of the profound transformation unfolding in our lives. As we reached the car, Lily finally loosened her grip, but not before giving my hand a quick squeeze. "This is nice," she whispered, almost to herself. I nodded, my throat tight with emotion. Yes, it was nice. It was more than nice, it was the start of healing. After our simple courthouse wedding and the cozy celebration at the diner, life began to shift in ways I'd only dared to imagine in my quietest moments. Our apartment, once a haven of quiet orderliness with its neatly arranged bookshelves and spotless kitchen counters, now buzzed with the vibrant energy of a 12-year-old discovering her place in a new world. The change didn't happen overnight. It was gradual, like the slow unfolding of a flower petal by petal. At first, the sounds were tentative. The soft thud of Lily's footsteps as she explored the rooms, the rustle of pages from her schoolbooks. But soon they grew bolder, filling the space with life. I remember the day Lily's laughter first echoed down the hallway, a sound so pure and unfiltered it caught me off guard. We'd gone to a local thrift shop, one of those hidden gems in Cleveland where you could find treasures amid the clutter. I had suggested it as a way to help her personalize her new room, maybe pick out some posters or knickknacks. But it was a pair of slightly worn rollerblades that captured her attention. They were bright pink with scuffed wheels, probably from some other child's adventures, but to Lily they were perfect. "Can I really have them?" she asked, her eyes wide with disbelief. I nodded, smiling as I paid the few dollars they cost. Back home, she laced them up right in the living room, wobbling at first but then gliding across the hardwood floor with increasing confidence. Her giggles bubbled up as she nearly crashed into the coffee table, and Michael, watching from the doorway, couldn't help but join in with a chuckle of his own. It was a simple moment, but it marked the beginning of her feeling truly at home. Evenings transformed too. Our kitchen table, once a spot for quick meals and casual conversations between Michael and me, now became a hub of activity. Lily's schoolbooks would spill across it, her notebooks filled with doodles and homework assignments mingling with Michael's work files, spreadsheets and reports from his administrator job, and my lesson plans as a budding educator at the company. I'd sit with her, helping decode math problems or discussing the themes in her English readings, while Michael prepared dinner, his steady hands chopping vegetables with the precision of someone who found solace in routine. "What's the capital of Ohio again?" she'd ask, pencil tapping against her lip, and I'd guide her through it, watching her face light up when she got it right. First, Lily navigated our apartment with caution, as if testing the waters of this new life. She'd hesitate before opening the fridge for a snack or sitting on the couch uninvited, her movements tentative, like she feared our welcome might wear thin at any moment. Broke my heart to see that ingrained wariness, a remnant of the instability she'd known in Youngstown. But every day, Michael and I made a conscious effort to show her she belonged. We'd include her in decisions like what movie to watch on family nights or what to cook for dinner. "What do you think, Lily? Tacos or stir fry?" Michael would ask, and her input mattered. It really did. We cooked together, the three of us crowding the small kitchen, laughing as flour dusted the counters during our attempts at homemade pizza. Over dinner, we'd swap stories, Michael sharing tales from his boxing days, me recounting funny mishaps from work, and Lily gradually opening up about her school friends or a book she was reading. These routines weren't grand gestures, but they wove a tapestry of normalcy and love around her. I took on the role of homework helper with enthusiasm, sitting beside her as she tackled assignments, offering encouragement when she stumbled. "You've got this," I'd say, and watch her determination grow. Michael, drawing from his athletic background, introduced her to the local boxing gym. "It's not about fighting," he'd explain as he showed her how to throw a proper punch, his voice patient and firm. "It's about strength inside and out." Lily took to it surprisingly well, her small fists jabbing at the heavy bag with a focus that mirrored her brother's. Slowly, the haunted look in her eyes, the one that spoke of too many nights in a chaotic home, began to soften. It was replaced by sparks of curiosity and joy, like when she'd come home excited about a science project or a new friend at school. These changes didn't erase her past, but they layered over it, building a foundation for her future. Of course, the transition wasn't without its challenges. Nothing worthwhile ever is. Within weeks of Lily moving in, the practicalities of making our family official kicked into high gear. Michael dove headfirst into the guardianship process, spending hours on the phone with lawyers and social workers. In Ohio, as I learned through our research and consultations, establishing guardianship for a minor sibling involves navigating the probate court system. It's not just a matter of wanting to care for someone, it's a legal commitment that requires proving your fitness as a guardian. Process began with filing an application at the Cuyahoga County Probate Court, since that's where we resided in Cleveland. Michael, with the help of our lawyer, submitted the necessary forms, the application for appointment of guardian of minor, along with affidavits detailing Lily's situation and why guardianship was needed. There was a filing fee, and we had to provide photocopies of important documents like Lily's birth certificate. Because Lily was over 10 years old, 12 to be exact, the court would consider her preferences, but ultimately the decision rested on what was in her best interest. Child Protective Services, CPS, became a regular part of our lives during those initial weeks. They scheduled home visits, arriving with clipboards and kind but probing questions. The caseworker, a middle-aged woman named Ms. Ramirez, inspected our apartment meticulously, checking for safety features like smoke detectors and secure locks, ensuring Lily had her own bedroom, which we had hastily but lovingly set up with a twin bed, a desk, and some shelves for her growing collection of books and trinkets, and verifying that our finances could support another person. "We need to make sure the environment is stable and nurturing," she explained during one visit, as she noted the stocked fridge and the absence of any hazards. Then came the interviews. Michael and I sat separately with Ms. Ramirez, answering questions about our backgrounds, our relationship, and our plans for Lily's future. "Why do you want guardianship?" she asked Michael, and he spoke from the heart about his desire to protect his sister from the instability he'd escaped. I shared my own commitment, emphasizing how Lily had already become part of our family. Even Lily was interviewed in a gentle, age-appropriate way to gauge her feelings. "I want to stay with Michael and Michelle," she said firmly, her voice steady despite the nerves I could see in her fidgeting hands. Court demanded more, comprehensive background checks for both of us, scouring for any criminal history, there was none, letters of reference from employers and friends attesting to our character, and proof of Michael's steady employment, income statements, tax returns, the works. It was exhaustive, a barrage of paperwork and appointments that left us drained at the end of each day. There were moments of doubt when the bureaucracy felt overwhelming like an insurmountable wall. But Michael never complained. His determination was quiet but unyielding, fueled by the love for his sister that had always been there, even when buried under layers of grief. One evening, after yet another marathon call with our lawyer discussing the upcoming hearing, Michael sank onto the couch, running a hand over his face. His eyes were tired, shadowed by the stress of it all. "It feels like they're measuring every inch of me, waiting for me to fail," he admitted, his voice laced with vulnerability. I sat beside him, resting my head on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of his body against mine. The apartment was quiet. Lily was in her room, probably reading one of the books I'd picked up for her. "They're not waiting for you to fail," I reassured him, my hand finding his. "They just want to be sure Lily's safe, and she is. You've already been taking care of her in every way that matters, emotionally, practically. This is just the legal side catching up to the reality we've built." My words seemed to ease him a bit. He squeezed my hand, a small smile breaking through. We sat like that for a while, the weight of the process shared between us. It was in these moments that our bond felt strongest, forged not just in love but in the shared trials we faced together. In the end, I was right. The first hearing, held in a stark courtroom in the probate court building, was a pivotal step. Our lawyer presented the case methodically. Michael's clean record, his stable job as an administrator, the strong support system we had with my parents nearby, and the home environment we'd created. The judge, a stern but fair woman in her 50s, reviewed the documents carefully, nodding as she read the CPS report that praised our setup. Carol, Lily's mother, had been notified as required by Ohio law, but she didn't contest the petition. In fact, she didn't even appear, which, while saddening, wasn't entirely surprising given the state we'd found her in. Court noted her absence and proceeded. By the end of summer, after a few more procedural steps, including a final home visit and updated financial reviews, the judge granted Michael full guardianship. It was official. Lily was legally under our care. Walking out of the courthouse that day, the sun beating down on us in the August heat, felt like emerging from a long tunnel. Lily clutched the official papers in her hands like a shield, her knuckles white around the edges, protecting her from everything she'd endured. Michael bent down to her level, his voice breaking with emotion. "You're with us now. For good. No one can take that away." She looked up at him, tears glistening in her eyes, and then buried her face in his chest, her small arms wrapping around him in a fierce hug. I stood there, blinking back my own tears, my hand on Michael's back. In that moment, the Harris family, our family, began to heal. Not by forgetting the past, with its shadows of addiction and loss, but by consciously choosing a different future, one step at a time. As the months passed, the seasons shifted, bringing the crisp bite of autumn and then the gray chill of early winter. Life settled into a comforting rhythm. School days for Lily, work for Michael and me, evenings filled with shared meals and quiet conversations. But beneath the surface, I knew Michael still carried remnants of his grief, like echoes in an empty room. So when, on a gray November morning, he suggested something he'd avoided for years, I was both surprised and relieved. We were sitting at the breakfast table, steam rising from our coffee mugs, the apartment filled with the scent of toast and eggs. Lily was still in her room, getting ready for school. Michael set down his mug, his hands twisting nervously in his lap, a rare sign of vulnerability from my usually steady husband. "I want to take you both to see Daniel," he said, his voice steady but his eyes betraying the turmoil within. I paused, my fork halfway to my mouth, processing his words. Daniel's grave had been a forbidden territory in his mind, a place tied to unbearable pain. But now he was ready, or at least ready to try. We drove to Youngstown that afternoon, the air sharp with the promise of winter, leaves crunching under our tires as we left the city behind. The drive was quiet, each of us lost in our thoughts. I glanced at Michael, his hands firm on the wheel, and squeezed his knee reassuringly. Lily sat in the back, unusually silent, fiddling with the hem of her coat. The cemetery sat on a low hill just outside town, a peaceful expanse of green dotted with headstones, the air still and heavy with the scent of earth and fading foliage. Brown, brittle leaves clung stubbornly to bare branches, rustling softly in the wind. Michael led the way, carrying a bouquet of white chrysanthemums he'd picked up on the way, symbols of remembrance and purity. His steps were heavy, deliberate, as if each one carried the weight of years unspoken. We reached the modest headstone etched simply, "Daniel Harris, beloved son and brother." The dates were stark, a reminder of a life cut tragically short. Michael stood there for a long moment, unable to speak, the flowers trembling in his grip. Then, slowly, he sank to his knees before the grave, his broad shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice cracking under the immense weight of accumulated years of regret. "I shouldn't have been here. I should have protected you." Tears streamed down his face, unchecked, as he reached out and pressed his hand against the cold stone, as if trying to bridge the gap between the living and the lost. His breath came out in visible puffs in the chill air, mingling with the falling dusk. I knelt beside him, wrapping my arms around his back, feeling the tremors of his grief course through him. My own tears fell silently, soaking into his coat. Lily stood close, her small frame steady despite the emotions swirling around us. She placed her hand on his shoulder, a quiet gesture of solidarity that spoke louder than words. "You didn't fail him," I murmured into his ear, my voice soft but firm. "You've carried this guilt for too long, Michael. Daniel wouldn't want you to live like this, trapped in what-ifs. He'd want you to keep going, to protect Lily the way you couldn't protect him, to live the full life you both dreamed of as kids." My words hung in the air, a gentle counter to the storm inside him. Michael closed his eyes, letting them sink in, his breathing gradually steadying. For years, the moment of his brother's death had been a chain around his neck, dragging him down with every memory. The blood, the screams, the helplessness, it had defined him in ways he never admitted. But here, in this quiet cemetery with his wife and sister beside him, that chain began to loosen. The grief was still there. It would always be a part of him, a scar on his soul, but for the first time it no longer controlled him. No longer defined who he was or what his family could be. As we stood, the first snowflakes of the season began to fall, soft and delicate, drifting down like whispers from the sky. The cemetery grew even quieter, blanketed in a hush that felt almost holy, reverent. I slipped my hand into Michael's, feeling the warmth of his palm against mine, while Lily held his other hand, completing our circle. Together, we stood before Daniel's grave, a family rebuilt from the ashes of loss, stronger for the trials we'd endured. Michael drew in a deep breath, the cold air sharpening his lungs, filling him with a clarity he'd long denied himself. Then, in a whisper so soft it was almost carried away by the wind, he said, "I forgive myself." It wasn't a dramatic declaration, not a shout into the void or a proclamation for the world to hear. It was simple, real, and profoundly enough. In that moment, I felt a shift, not just in him, but in all of us. The snow continued to fall, gentle and persistent, covering the ground in a thin white veil that symbolized renewal. We walked back to the car slowly, the snow swirling lightly around us, dusting our coats and hair. Winter was just beginning, its chill seeping into the air, but for us, it marked the start of something else entirely. A new life defined not by the shadows of what we'd lost, but by the light of what we'd chosen to build together. As we drove home, the flakes thickening outside the windows, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. I'd learned that love and compassion couldn't erase tragedy. No amount of wishing could turn back time or undo the pain. But they could transform it, taking the sharpest edges of hurt and softening them over time, turning open wounds into scars that no longer bled but instead told a powerful story of survival and resilience. For Michael, the lesson was even simpler, distilled from the complexity of his past. Family wasn't the chaos and heartbreak he'd been born into, the cycle of addiction and violence that had claimed so much. It was the people who stood by him now, me, steady and unyielding in my support, and Lily, fierce and unbreakable despite her young age. Together, we were living proof that even the deepest wounds could heal, that from the ruins of loss, something beautiful and enduring could rise. As the snow fell thicker, coating the earth in a silent, pristine blanket, I knew one unshakable truth: love and forgiveness were stronger than any grief. In that truth, the Harris family, our family, had found peace at last.